Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute as I have been basically off for the summer of 2026 at the World Series of Poker, and I'm trying to get back into the groove with some new mixed game content for you guys. And I thought I would start with something a little bit different to kind of get back into the flow of things, and that would be to look over my WSOP, to look over my summer 2026, and talk a little bit about what it's like to play a full World Series schedule. I'm not going to talk about any individual hand histories today or really too much strategy content, but I'm just going to talk about what it was like going through the experience from my memory of all these different events that I played, what it's like to play so many buy-ins, all different stakes throughout the series, and yeah, my thoughts on the summer, and happy to answer any questions. This was by far the most tournaments that I believe I've ever played during the WSOP. I'll just quickly scroll down here, and I played 49 events and many more bullets than that. I think I played something like 72 bullets. I posted on Twitter a couple weeks back after doing all my math. Spoiler alert, I ended up winning money, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, let me go through this a little bit. Just my thoughts on the series and what it's like to be out there. I'm pretty good at this by now. I'm used to the grind of the series and knowing that I'm going to be out there for basically 7 weeks, which I played basically a full schedule this series from start to finish. I played one of the first events, and I played the last event, the Super Turbo Bounty or the Super Turbo at the very end. So I was there pretty much the entire time, making some money, making some fantasy points. One thing you want to keep in mind when I'm talking about this is that my goal when I'm out at the World Series of Poker is not necessarily to maximize my EV or my hourly. I'm fortunate enough that I'm at a point in my life where I'm playing World Series tournaments in some ways for fun and for ego. I mean, of course I want to do well and I try my best when I'm playing, but the reality is that if I was just trying to maximize my amount of money earned, I would probably be playing cash games. I would probably even just maybe stay here in Phoenix where most pros are out of town for a while. So the reality is that like a lot of my decision making around what events to play are not necessarily the highest EV choice, but they're built around the ideas that I'm trying to have fun, I'm trying to win bracelets, I'm trying to make fantasy points because I'm part of the 25K fantasy draft and I think that's fun. And yeah, I'm trying to make money, but at the same time, I'm also trying to accomplish a bunch of other things that aren't necessarily as easy to measure. So anyway, as I look through this schedule and try to just think back on my memory, a lot of these bullets that I played are in these small no-limit hold'em events, like this 550 mystery bounty. I played 4 bullets. I don't remember a thing about these guys. I sometimes come in very close to max late reg. I look at the first decent hand that I get. I put my money in. These things are sort of weird. A lot of the players in these things are not really what I'd call poker players per se. I mean, they're sort of just there because they want to be a part of the World Series of Poker. They play maybe home games or very small stakes, and so it's sort of like a different world from the level of play that I'm typically used to, and I try to enjoy it, but I always find it a little bit strange. The first event I played that was kind of my normal event would be this 1500 Omaha 8 or better. Don't remember too much about this other than I busted relatively uneventfully. And then I played the 5K PLO, which you can see here on my buy-ins. I was being in for 15K, so I was in 3 bullets. My memory of this is that I ran it up on my second bullet and then ended up playing a huge pot and losing, and then ran it back up again on my third bullet, ended up cashing, kind of didn't have enough chips to really do anything too exciting, ended up min cashing and losing a little bit of money there. The only thing this really makes me think about is that I often have students that are kind of hesitant to rebuy in tournaments, and I really want to encourage you guys, if you're going to play a poker tournament, then you really need to mentally budget for as many rebuys as are allowed. Because if the tournament's plus EV on the first bullet, then it's plus EV on the third bullet. And you never know when you're going to run it up. It's like, it's the same thing. If you play this tournament 3 times, it's the same thing as playing 3 different tournaments 1 time. So I do think that people have a bit of a strange attitude towards rebuying. But for sure, when I'm playing at a big series and I'm going to be showing up every day, I am budgeting for all the bullets that I might need, and obviously I'm hoping that I use fewer, but the reality is that, rebuys are a part of the game, and if you're not willing to rebuy, you might consider whether or not you should be even playing the tournament in the first place. Skipped stud because I was in the other event. Played Badoogie. I remember that I late reg and had hilariously hard table. I think Scott Seaver even tweeted about it, about how insanely bad our table was. I busted uneventfully. Then I played the 10K Omaha 8 or better. Very good tournament. Definitely a game that I feel very comfortable in. Not to plug too hard, but definitely just all the events that I did well in. A lot of them were Omaha events, and I do think that all my pre-flop study, especially using the lab and just the tools that I've had available for years for solver tools, pre-flop is so important in the later stages of the tournament when you're shorter stacked. A lot of times you really only have one big decision, which is whether to play the hand or not. So if you have a sense of how to play pre-flop, it's certainly going to help you out a lot. I remember that in this Omaha 8 or better tournament, I was really cruising along on day 2, and post bubble had plenty of chips, great table, and then just never won a pot for 45 minutes and was just out. And that's kind of how I feel like these limit ones go sometimes. It's also going to be interesting as I look through this list here. Note that this is the only limit tournament of the series that I cashed in, which is a little bit of a disturbing trend to me and a little bit of something that I can't really put my finger on why, but my results were way better in Big Bet the last few years than they were in the limit events, and that trend kind of continued. I have this other tab open that has the 25K fantasy just because it has the actual finishing places, so I can look up the the results. But yeah, here I ended up finishing 22nd place in the 10K Omaha. So, I mean, look, these things pay something like 30 something spots, so this was really just a min cash. I was a little bit disappointed when I busted this one. I feel like it's one of my better games. I had a really good table, and I was cruising along and then just ran out of chips. Nothing happened after that. We see I had some zeros here for not played because I was in this 10K Omaha for a couple days. Played this mixed Omaha, don't really remember much about that. Single draw. Okay, so 10K single draw, one of my favorite games. A tournament that I would definitely say has gotten much tougher in the last few years. The no limit hold'em players that play now at the 10K level are much stronger players. They have a lot better sense of pre-flop hand selection and drawing decisions, and they put you to tough decisions for the betting rounds. So, as much as I love this tournament, I do have to say that I think the level of play has risen quite a lot. Perhaps also because these days there are a lot more tools for studying, and obviously, solvers that can help, with the fundamental bet sizings and things like that. And I do think that the studious players are doing a good job with this. I was in 2 bullets. I busted midway through day 2, I think. I was never really doing that well. I was sort of short stacked, and I ended up getting cold decked Pat 9 in the small blind versus Noya Kihara Pat 8 in the big blind. He went on to win the tournament, I think, so I suppose he used my chips properly, and congrats to him. But yeah, kind of uneventful bust out there for me. It was maybe getting a little bit close to the money, if I remember right, and that will be a bit of a trend in these 10K events, which I'm going to talk about too, which was that I had a lot of close calls in the 10Ks, or I really could have had quite a good summer. I can't complain, guys. Trust me, it went fine. Let's see, dealer's choice. Yeah, I kind of cruised along in this. I called all big bet games. I think the mixed game players just don't want to play big pots in the big bet games. I'm very comfortable with pot limit triple draw. I really like calling. I even called no limit hold'em, I believe, at one of my tables because there was a big ante and people just did not want to play pots. So I was really leaning into like my comfort level with the big bet games. And I was in the money cruising, and then again, I think I just sort of stopped winning pots. Never had anything happen there. This is going to go long if I really talk about every individual tournament, I'm just realizing, but we'll see. Played some bullets in these smaller binds here, PLO, 8 or better, some random no limit hold'em bullets, some big O bullets, very uneventful like little mid-sap here. I believe that this stud high, I was pretty late reg for some reason. I must have been in some other event. And I kind of just didn't win any hands, and I was already close to max late reg if I remember right. Doesn't look like I played any of these other bullets, so there must have been a lot of overlap here in tournaments. And then 10K Dealer's Choice, one of my favorite events because it's kind of the most like a high-stakes cash game where the players are fairly competent, you're playing a wide mix of games, and there's definitely that element of if someone's weak at a game, it's going to get called a lot, and you end up having to really play your worst games, and the more comfortable you are at all the games, then the easier it is. I remember that I had a table filled with big bet players, a lot of PLO, and a lot of PLO pot limit triple draw were called. I was cruising along, and then I believe I got cold decked in a pot limit triple draw hand where I made number 3 on the turn in a multi-way pot, and the button made number 1. Don't really think I could have gotten away from it, and I busted somewhat uneventfully in that one. Don't think it was too close to the money. I played this 600 half and half, again, kind of like the Space Alien lands. Ran up a stack, and actually I was in 3 bullets as I look here. So I ran up a stack and ended up cashing, but losing money as I was in multiple bullets. But again, when you're playing a big series like this, I mean, those sort of buy-ins are not ones that I'm really focused on in terms of any sort of dollar amount. I'm mostly just trying to make a deep run. Obviously, we know that in these huge field events, all the money's at the final table, and that'll be a theme of some of my good caches later on here, were final table runs. Yeah, I also had a decent run in this Super Turbo Bounty, a very fun tournament because it really rewards my strength, which is like not folding and going for bounties. You also get to play a lot of hands when you have chips, and I certainly took advantage of that. I think I got a number of bounties. Most of this profit here, this 96.29, was from bounties, and not so much from the actual cash of the tournament. I ended up getting, what place did I finish in on this one? Let's see here. 48th place, and it had like thousands of players, so this was a pretty good result. I mean, this was a fun one. It was sort of a close call, I guess you'd say. I wasn't really that close to the big money, but I got some bounties, and it was certainly a fun one. 10k PLO8, I had to max late reg this because I think I was in the Super Turbo Bounty. I love this tournament, but didn't spin it up on my max bullet. On the other hand, this one has 3 bullets, and I was off to kind of a slow start, I think, for the series, so not being in for 3 bullets is certainly in the back of my mind, like kind of just being like, okay, I lost 10k, cool, that's a lot better than losing 30k. Obviously, winning would have been even better, but, is what it is. 1500 horse. Kind of remember running up some chips in this one before, fizzling out. 10k limit hold'em, I certainly had a decent run. I ended up soft bubbling this tournament. I have lots of hands written down from this one, which I'll certainly go over in some future videos. I like to analyze limit hold'em hands using PioSolver. I have lots of hands from this tournament. I thought I played pretty well. It's a good tournament. It doesn't get that big of a field, but I do think that people just aren't that studious at limit hold'em. It's kind of a uncommon game in the cash game world now these days, and yeah, I just fizzled out at the end there. Soft bubble, another spot where I could have easily made a min cash and made 20k instead of losing 10k. And then I played a bunch of small events here, no limit hold'em bullets, Raz. Big O, I max late regged, I think, and spun it up, and then took a really bad beat. I got all in pre with good aces against something like ace, queen, queen, and the flop came super dry and safe, and the turn was just a queen. And I was pretty annoyed, because I kind of feel like I don't really like Big O. I don't feel like it's as skillful as PLO8, and I feel like I run bad in this 10k Big O every year. Just to be honest, I just don't like this tournament for some reason. It's kind of in the back of my mind. You know how, like in golf, there's just that one hole that just doesn't suit your eye? I swear this 10k Big O is just that tournament for me. It's just never gone well, whether I've gotten it in good, gotten it in bad. Oh well, saved some money there. I was only in 1 bullet from the max late reg. Uneventful bust outs, mid tier ones. Raz, I had a decent table. I like Raz. I think people play the 10k Raz a lot better than they play Raz during, like, say, Horse. And it just plays really bloody. Everyone plays very aggressively, and I spun up some chips and then I spun them down. Uneventful bust out there. 2500 no limit. I have almost no recollection of this other than I min cashed, so cool, good for me. Oh yeah, I remember busting out in a funny hand on day 2, but not that interesting. I got it in a flush draw against a higher flush draw, and he beat me with king high. Sad. 9 game, I spun it up a little bit and then busted. 10k horse, another soft bubble, another one of my favorite tournaments, a really good tournament. Just kind of the theme of the series, my limit events just not going that well, especially on day 2. Yeah, I don't really have anything super memorable about this one other than I remember that I was fighting hard to try to get to the cash, and I busted out like a few from the money. However, this is one of those things that happens sometimes during the summer where you don't know when there's a blessing in disguise. And what happened here is I busted the 10k horse on the soft bubble and had just enough time to max late reg this 3k no limit hold'em 6 max tournament. I, in past years, wouldn't have necessarily always played this sort of event. I would say a 3k no limit hold'em is a bad tournament for me. I mean, there are a number of very good no limit hold'em players, but I am there playing for fantasy points. I am trying to just kind of see what I can do when I'm free on any given day. And this one I max late reg, managed to run up a stack early on. I remember that I sat down with, like, you have probably 12 big blinds or something when you max late reg these things, and I think I 10x'd my stack within 45 minutes. Just a lot of good hands pre-flop, flopping a set and getting all the money in really good, etc., etc. Ended up going on a deep run here. I'll have some hands to go over. In the past I've been hesitant on this channel to go over big bet hands because I think that there's just better resources out there for you guys that really want to study no limit hold'em and PLO. But maybe I have one advantage, which is that I'm a mixed game player, and I mostly play big bet against mixed game players in like 8 game fields. And I'm guessing a lot of you guys watching these sort of videos are also mixed game players that sometimes have to play big bet. So maybe I can give you that perspective, which may be a little bit more different than just studying no limit hold'em through the lens of a superstar no limit hold'em tournament pro. Anyway, I made a deep run here. I ended up busting at the final table. Did I get 6th? I can't remember now. Yeah, I got 6th place. It was a good cash. It was a little bit disappointing only because it got really shallow at the final table, and I believe I was even slight chip leader, 6-handed at one point, and then everything just kind of went wrong, and I busted in 6th. So a great result to make $82,530 in an event that's not really even close to one of my best games. But obviously the big money was waiting at the top, and it would have been really, really cool to win that one, or to certainly just to make more money by a very deep cash. And I had some tough ICM spots at the final table, which is not my strength because obviously I haven't studied high level no limit hold'em ICM to the level of some of my opponents. All right, this is maybe going to have to be a two-parter, but let's see if we can get through this here. I was on a deep run there, so I didn't play these other events, and then I did take a day off before hopping into the 50K. This year was a little bit disappointing. They didn't cover the 50K PPC that much, so I don't really have any coverage of the event, but I do have lots of hands written down for analysis. We'll definitely talk about some individual hands from that tournament. I made an okay run, again, kind of soft bubbling the tournament. I think I busted 3 or 4 away from the money. Very disappointing, of course, but I was quite short stacked all of that day. I think it's day 3 that you make the money that it could have been day 4. It's all kind of blurring together for me. I remember playing a massive PLO pot against Benny Glauser midway through that day that we ended up chopping somehow. If I would have won that, of course, everything would have been different. He went on to win the tournament. Congrats to him. I went on to bubble and move on with my life. Nothing, because I was in the 50K. And then 10K deuce to 7, triple draw. Good table. I remember thinking like, wow, people were playing poorly. Decent table, and just kind of fizzled out. Some no limit hold'em bullets, a 1500 stud 8 bullet, and then I cashed this 10K PLO. Another tournament where I've gotten way stronger at PLO. I played most of day 1 deeper stacked and felt like I held my own. Obviously, as you get to day 2 of this thing, it gets more short stacked, and as this thing approached the money bubble, I had sort of a middling stack and couldn't really do anything. I needed to like play extremely tight, just like knowing that I was basically going to cash the tournament if I don't play a hand. If I would have picked up aces, I would have been in some spots, but I really never got dealt aces, and I remember making a big fold on the soft bubble of just like kings at one point, but that's really about it. I min-cashed, and then relatively quickly after the bubble got burst, got my money in with like an ace-king type of combo and lost. So a good min-cash there, but nothing eventful really, all things considered. A bullet in this mixed big bet. I was in the PLO, so I could only max late reg this. I really like this tournament because it's quite fun, even though it's quite tough, but nothing eventful there. And then I made a decent run in this 1500 8 game. I think I got like 13th place. What did I get here? Let's see. 15th place here. So sort of a deep run. I think Sean Deeb won that tournament, or maybe got second. I can't quite remember. But I played with him a lot when we were like 3 tables left. And yeah, again, just sort of fizzled out. Was mostly happy with my play. I'll probably have some hands from that tournament to look over. Stud 8. Uneventful. Yeah, I think I max late reg that tournament, ran it up, ran it down. Mixed triple draw, very uneventful. 10K 8 game, another one of my favorite events. This tournament got a great turnout this year. There were so many like big bet players that were here for the main event that played this tournament that didn't really know the limit games that well. I'm much more comfortable in big bet than I used to be, so I just like this tournament. I was cruising along. I bagged a really big stack on day 1, and on day 2 I was doing okay, and then the wheels sort of fell off the wagon, and I started just kind of going down, and ended up busting out like 8 spots before the money. So another disappointing result in a 10K where I had chips and thought I was going to maybe make a deep run, end up kind of soft bubbling. Yeah, like I said, that was a bit of a theme this summer. So then I took a couple days off. My family visited. This was like kind of my relaxing time before max late regging the main, which I registered on day 2. What did I do this year? I think I registered on day 2 ABC, which is just the way it fell with my family leaving town. So I registered the main on day 2 ABC, kind of grinded along and managed to bag, I think, like maybe a small profit. I'd have to go look up in my notes, but nothing too exciting. Actually, you know what? I think I bagged less than a starting stack because on my day off between day 2 ABC and day 2D, where the other portion of the field was playing, I ended up registering this 1K PLO Mystery Bounty, Flight A, which ended up being a great decision, as you guys can see from the result here. But it was kind of a funny situation. So what happened was I registered this tournament knowing I had a short stack in the main, and worst case scenario, I need to decide what to do with both of my stacks on day 3. Oh, I know what happened. I had that wrong. So I actually played day one. I think I played day 1C of the main and bagged below starting stack. That's what happened. And then so I played this PLO mystery bounty, played 3 bullets. On my 3rd bullet, ran it up and bagged a pretty healthy stack, I think about average. And the way these mystery bounty tournaments work is the bounties don't kick in until day 2. So now I've got a stack that's going to go to day 2, and it's going to be worth a decent amount because having an average stack certainly can get my money in all sorts of spots and go for the mystery bounties, which can be very profitable. I think the biggest bounty in this tournament was 100K. But I had a small problem because on day 2 of the main event, which was the day after this tournament, where I had the day off, it's a little confusing, but on day 2 of this tournament, it was the PLO Mystery Bounty Flight B, but I didn't have to play that because I already bagged in Flight A, so I'm playing the main event instead. And then I actually had a good day and did well and bagged an average stack in the main as well. So now we come to day 3 of the main, I think, or maybe I have these mixed up where it's day 4 of the main, whatever, the day of the main that we're on the money bubble, and I've got an average stack. So now I'm in both tournaments. This is a good problem to have, but a bit of a problem to have, right? So obviously I need to focus on the main event. It's the bigger tournament by far, and I was hoping that there'd be opportunities to go over and put my chips in the PLO tournament. Like on the break, I would just go over and pot every hand and hope for the best. What ends up happening is the main event bubble doesn't take too long, and soon after the bubble bursts, I have a fine stack. I think I have about average. I raise jacks, flop a set. The big blind defends, there's a flush draw on the flop, and he check calls twice, and on the river he check raises me all in when the flush comes, and maybe there was a little bit of my mind that's like thinking about the other tournament that I could be potentially playing, but I think it's mostly just how flat the payouts are, and I've got a set, and SPR is not that high, and the river was like 1.1, and I called it off, and he had a flush, and I'm basically out. I think I had a small amount of chips left over and got them in the next hand. So I bust the main very kind of uneventfully, like right after the bubble bursts, and just in time to go and play my chips in the PLO Mystery Bounty day 2. So instead of just having to go over on my break where I'm blinding out and just like kind of punt off my chips, I now got to just play the tournament. And the funny thing is the way Mystery Bounty day 2s work, you're kind of just punting in a way anyway, because you really need to play a bunch of hands trying to collect bounties. I end up spinning it up, winning a million all-ins with all sorts of funny hands, sometimes having good hands, sometimes having bad hands, but just getting lucky. I collect some bounties, and long story short, I find myself at the final table of the PLO Mystery Bounty, and I think I got 4th, right? Yeah, so I bust the main in 12/28 for a min cash, and at the same time, I'm in the Mystery Bounty PLO, and the next day I end up finishing 4th for a big cash. I think the cash was for 112K, and then I had all these bounties. I pulled the 50K bounty at the end. I tweeted about this a little bit. It was a pretty funny story. Very lucky to do so well in that tournament. Very unexpected results. And a great amount of money. Obviously, that cash right there kind of covered a bunch of all my earlier buy-ins, and I think at this point I'm now ahead for the series. Also, it's kind of winding down at this point, right? The main is still going on, but most people are out. There's not too many big events left. So I'm in all these other tournaments, so I skip these. I end up playing, I don't know, Bolt in the 3K Torse. I played a Max Late Reg Bolt in this 3K No Limit Hold'em. Blah, blah, blah. The closer, I was in a couple bullets. So I just played all these No Limit Hold'em tournaments at the end. And then the PLO 6 Max. So another PLO tournament. I was in 2 bullets, spun it up, during late, while registration was still open. Ended up bagging a healthy stack there. Kept cruising on day 2 and ended up making the final table of back-to-back PLO events. Finished another 4th place. This one I'll definitely do some discussions on the channel. Pretty confident I ICM torched my bust out hand. Never a good feeling to make feel like you misplayed your bust out hand. Wish I would have done something different, of course, but on the other hand, my aggressive play got me to that stage, and can't be too upset with another 4th place finish for 129K. Yeah, I'll definitely do some talking about that hand, but I'm going to wrap up here. Because I was still in this 3K 6 Max PLO, I ended up skipping the 25K horse. I would have certainly played that event, but I was deep in the PLO, so good for me, and I managed to save some money by not playing the horse, which is a pretty tough tournament in general and a kind of a turbo structure, so really I'm not that sad about it. And then I was basically done. I played the Super Turbo at the very end, min cash that one, and wrapped up my summer. Here you can see some of my stats. 110 events here is the total possible number of events that I could have played. I ended up playing 49 unique events and I think something like 72 bullets. You can see my winnings here. This is from actual cashes. Refunds just means tournaments I didn't play. So total returns was this, and minus the buy-ins, net result about 200K profit. So very awesome. Obviously, we can see that that's all kind of coming from these last 2 PLO events where I profited over 300K. So would have been big loser, ended up big winner. That's how these things go. You really need to make final tables in World Series tournaments to make money. Very happy overall to survive a series, 2 4th places and a 6th place. 13 cashes is my most ever in the World Series. 12 of them being in big bet events is an interesting trend, something to think about going forward. And yeah, I'm really happy I looked this over. Let me know what questions you have. I'm kind of an open book about these things. I mean, I'm playing these tournaments every year, and I feel like I've gotten much better at the grind of the World Series and all that entails. And I think that shows in my results this year. I was off to a pretty crummy start and managed to have some good runs at the end. I was very proud of myself for showing up every day with a decent attitude and fighting hard, and getting some awesome results at the end to make money is certainly makes me feel good about coming back. So very happy with that. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm gonna start getting into some strategy content from my World Series tournaments. Obviously, I'm always looking for new ideas for things to show on the channel. So yeah, let me know what suggestions you have or what questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them and or make videos. I'm gonna kind of pick up where I left off. I'm going to go through hand reviews. We'll use some solver tools. We'll look at the lab, and I'll probably do some slides type of videos too, where I talk about concepts and general ideas. Things that I noticed from a lot of my opponents at the series will be good for content, especially for you guys that are playing some of the 1500 buy-in level tournaments. I think that summarizes a lot of people that might be watching these videos or playing at the smaller level, and you want to be playing at the bigger level, right? So what are some things I noticed from the 1500s? What are differences I noticed between the 1500 level and the 10K level at the World Series? I think these will be interesting topics going forward. So take it easy, guys. Check me out going forward on YouTube. I'll be back, and let me know what you thought about this in the comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions. See you guys soon.